In recent years, the devastating wildfires in Los Angeles and the Hollywood Hills have become more frequent, leaving behind a trail of destruction that is hard to ignore. While the news outlets portray these fires as environmental tragedies linked to climate change and human negligence, some believe that behind these flames lies something deeper, something they don't want us to know. After all, is it truly mere chance that determines where the fire strikes? You might call it paranoia. I call it vision. This is light, also known as L, and together we're going to break the code they've hidden from you. But remember, every discovery shared illuminates new minds. Help the channel grow. Like, share, and subscribe so we can reach more people on this journey. Without further ado, let's dive into the video. In the hills of Los Angeles, where some of the world's most luxurious properties blend with film studios and discreet offices, the fire seems to follow a peculiar pattern. On recent fire maps, areas that once housed abandoned industrial facilities or storage warehouses have been completely wiped out, leaving little to no trace of their existence. These locations, curiously, were associated with old contracts, physical records, and even rumors of confidential technological research. Too convenient, don't you think? When the fire strikes precisely where there's something certain people would rather forget, it's hard to believe in coincidences. In 2018, for instance, the Woolsey fire burned around 40,000 hectares, sweeping through facilities once used by the Santa Susana Field Laboratory, a site shrouded in mystery over alleged nuclear experiments in the 1950s. Despite denials of any health risks, the destruction of the structures prevents further investigation. Was it a coincidence that the fire cleared an area activists had demanded more thorough investigations of? Additionally, anonymous reports from film industry insiders suggest that major studio archives, with old contracts, financial information, and even stored recordings, were destroyed in fires deemed coincidental. To some, the fire wasn't just an accident. It was a convenient solution to silence scandals and bury stories that could compromise influential figures. Who stands to gain from the destruction of this information? This question becomes even more pressing when we notice that, unlike natural wildfires, many of these outbreaks begin in specific areas far from any vegetation, prone to spontaneous combustion. Local witnesses report unusual flashes or explosions moments before the flames ignite. But who would have the resources and the motive to execute something so calculated? There are also the so-called Hollywood private vaults, locations where major studios store their most valuable archives. While some of these facilities withstand the fires, others are consumed quickly, even though they were designed to resist extreme conditions. Curiously, it's always the lesser-known areas that suffer the most impact. It seems fate chooses well what will be consumed by the flames, doesn't it? With the rise of digitalization, many could argue that essential data is safe in the cloud. However, it's important to remember that it's not just documents or films at stake. Reports of illicit practices, such as extortion schemes and bribes within Hollywood, often point to specific locations where physical records were kept. These locations, for the most part, no longer exist. Even when investigations are launched, the evidence has already been destroyed. Authorities often attribute these incidents to poor environmental management or climate change, while powerful figures remain untouched. But how can we trust investigations conducted by systems so deeply intertwined with the same elites who might be behind this? What about the reports from local witnesses that never make it to mainstream media? Numerous people claim the fires were deliberate, but their stories rarely gain attention. A carefully controlled narrative seems to emerge, suggesting that the elite not only create the conditions for disaster, but also define how it will be remembered. Connecting the dots reveals a disturbing vision. Fire doesn't just destroy what's visible, but also what's hidden. Sites of clandestine meetings, compromising contracts, and even advanced technological experiments are consumed by heat, erasing traces that could expose entire networks of corruption. Isn't it strange that these fires seem to occur in the most convenient areas for those with something to hide? The pattern, frequency, and impact leave a lingering question. Are we truly witnessing natural disasters or meticulously orchestrated operations? Who benefits from the destruction, and why does it repeatedly happen in strategically important locations? On the hillsides of Los Angeles, where real estate values soar to exorbitant heights, fires seem to pave the way for interests far beyond environmental tragedies. Areas devastated by fire are often redeveloped within months, transforming devalued land into multi-million-dollar ventures. But who is behind these well-timed transactions? A striking example occurred in 2019 when a fire destroyed high-value properties in Malibu, a region highly coveted by the elite. Shortly after the tragedy, some of these lands, previously appraised at tens of millions, were sold at significantly reduced prices. It wasn't long before luxury condominium projects and exclusive resorts emerged, raising suspicions of possible event manipulation. Could fire be a strategic ally in the real estate market? Behind the scenes, investment corporations and magnates seem to be the biggest beneficiaries. Financial consortiums, often associated with little-publicized names, appear as buyers of devastated areas. These acquisitions are justified as opportunities for urban revitalization, but the proximity to influential Hollywood figures and major studios raises questions. Who, exactly, is profiting from the destruction? Another intriguing detail is the role of insurance companies. Burned properties often generate multi-million-dollar payouts, enabling former owners to receive sufficient funds to reinvest in even more lucrative projects. Meanwhile, the new owner acquires the land at low prices, creating a cycle where fire doesn't just destroy but redistributes wealth selectively. Is this coincidence or part of a well-structured plan? There's also the issue of building permits. In many cases, areas protected by environmental laws become more accessible for development after being devastated by fires. Once untouchable, these zones are now deemed unsuitable for preservation, clearing the way for new projects. But who is pushing for such swift legal changes? Local witnesses often report unusual activity before major fires. In a documented case in 2017, unidentified drones were seen flying over a residential area days before the fire began. Were these devices used for monitoring or even igniting the flames? The possibility that advanced technologies are being employed to start intentional fires cannot be dismissed. Another intriguing point is the reconstruction pattern. Many of the properties built after the fires follow architectural styles favoring sustainability and modernity, which might initially seem positive. However, these projects often attract international investors, displacing local residents and transforming the region's landscape. Are the wildfires reshaping Los Angeles according to global interests? Even communities that survive the direct impact of the flames suffer from the aftermath. Small business owners and residents are often forced to sell their properties at low values due to the economic instability caused by the fires. This facilitates the entry of large corporations, which transform entire neighborhoods into luxury developments. And what about the role of the government? Local authorities often claim that the fires are the result of negligence or climate change, but their connections to real estate companies suggest another narrative. Politicians who approve redevelopment projects in burned areas frequently receive campaign donations from interested investors. Could fire, then, be as much a political tool as an economic one? There is something unsettling about this seemingly endless cycle of destruction and reconstruction. Fire, which should be an uncontrollable force of chaos, appears to follow a pattern that always benefits the same groups. Land that was once untouchable becomes the stage for million-dollar developments, while former residents vanish from the map. With each fire, a new opportunity arises for the powerful, while the most vulnerable are left behind. Are we merely witnessing natural disasters, or are the flames consuming Los Angeles fueled by far darker interests? As flames consume the iconic landscapes of Los Angeles, news reports bring images of destruction and emotional loss to homes worldwide. Yet, behind these seemingly neutral headlines, a pattern begins to emerge. The media, which should serve as a beacon of information, seems to follow a carefully controlled agenda. Why, after all, are certain aspects of these fires systematically ignored? So, why does no one talk about this? Maybe because the media is more concerned with protecting who pays their bills than telling the truth. In many cases, news outlets focus exclusively on material damage and the victim's suffering. While legitimate, these elements divert attention from deeper issues, such as the origins of the fires or the political and financial decisions made behind the scenes. Is this merely a coincidence, or are we dealing with a carefully crafted narrative? Media conglomerates that dominate television networks and news portals are often linked to corporate and political interests. It is not uncommon for these same conglomerates to maintain close ties with large real estate corporations or investors who might benefit from the fires. With such concentrated control, who decides which stories will be told and which will be buried? Moreover, debates about the origins of the fires are often reduced to extremes: human negligence or climate change. While both are real factors, this dichotomy seems to deliberately exclude other possibilities, such as intentional infrastructure failures, public mismanagement, or even technological manipulation. Why are these alternatives rarely discussed in mainstream media? Independent reports, often ignored by conventional media, suggest that some burned areas displayed unusual combustion patterns, such as outbreaks occurring simultaneously at multiple points. These patterns are, in many cases, more consistent with deliberate actions than natural accidents. Why don't such findings gain prominence? Another troubling aspect is how media coverage often diverts attention from other critical issues coinciding with the fires. Political scandals, legislative changes, or even financial crises tend to receive less attention during these periods. Could the fires be used as a form of distraction during critical moments? Even the language used by the media contributes to shaping public perception. Terms like inevitable and natural tragedy reinforce the idea that no one is responsible while excluding the possibility of malicious intent. Is this choice of words truly impartial, or does it reflect an effort to shield the true culprits? Digital platforms, which could offer an alternative to the narrative control of major media, also face limitations. Videos, reports, and theories questioning the official narrative are often removed or demonetized under the guise of misinformation. Who decides what constitutes misinformation, and to what end? A notorious example occurred during the 2020 fires when videos showing high-powered lasers being used to create heat points were widely shared online, only to quickly disappear from multiple platforms. While many dismissed these videos as absurd theories, others questioned, why censor something that could be transparently debunked? The emotional manipulation is another factor. The media exploits touching stories of victims and heroes, diverting attention from deeper structural issues. While humanizing events is important, this approach can serve as a distraction, preventing people from questioning the real causes of the fires. If the media is controlled by financial interests, how can we trust the narrative presented to us? And what if what we see in the news is only a carefully chosen part of a much larger truth? In the end, there is an uncomfortable sense that the smoke obscuring the Los Angeles skies also hides the truth. Who controls what we know, and what is being hidden behind carefully worded headlines? As science progresses at impressive speeds, technologies that once seemed like science fiction are now a reality. Among them is so-called climate control, a controversial field that has sparked debates worldwide. What if these tools were being used not to protect but to destroy? The idea that the wildfires in Los Angeles might be intentional finds support in disturbing reports and documented technologies. In 2018, satellite images captured an unusual phenomenon during the Camp Fire in Northern California. Lines of fire emerged simultaneously in distant locations, something that defies natural patterns. Meteorological experts ruled out the possibility of spontaneous combustion under such conditions, but few alternative explanations were presented. Who would have the capability to create such precise heat points? Among the bolder theories is the use of directed energy weapons, DEWs. These technologies, originally developed for military purposes, use concentrated energy beams, such as lasers, to target specific areas. While widely denied, there are records of DEW tests in various parts of the world. Could the fires in Los Angeles be a testing ground for these weapons? Additionally, systems like HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, are often mentioned in theories about climate manipulation. Officially, HAARP was designed to study the ionosphere, but critics argue that it could be used to alter weather patterns. Could a technology like this be employed to intensify droughts and create perfect conditions for wildfires? The relationship between these technological advances and the wildfires is not merely speculation. Documents revealed by environmental monitoring organizations show that experimental geoengineering projects have already been proposed to manipulate the climate in specific regions. While the declared intent is to combat climate change effects, who can guarantee that these technologies won't be misused? Another intriguing point is the burn patterns. Many fires hit high-value residential areas, but curiously leave untouched objects or structures that should have been destroyed by fire. In amateur videos, cars are seen completely melted, while nearby trees remain standing, contradicting the logic of a common fire. What kind of selective fire could produce such effects? The presence of unidentified drones in affected areas before the fires is another element that cannot be ignored. In more than one case, residents reported sightings of equipment flying over locations shortly before the flames started. While authorities often dismiss such accounts, they are too consistent to be disregarded. Who would be controlling these devices and for what purpose? There is also a psychological impact associated with these fires. When people believe they are facing uncontrollable natural forces, their ability to resist or question is reduced. But what if these disasters were intentional? Could fear be as powerful a tool of control as fire itself? Investments in firefighting technologies also raise suspicions. Large corporations often profit from multi-million-dollar contracts to supply equipment and services to affected areas. Wouldn't it be convenient if the fires continued, ensuring a steady flow of money for these industries? While many dismiss these theories as mere coincidences, the frequency and precision of the fires in Los Angeles are hard to ignore. If technologies like directed energy weapons or climate manipulation are being used, what does this say about the intentions of those controlling these tools? Could it be that the fires devastating California are not just the result of environmental conditions, but a reflection of an invisible war waged in the shadows? Who holds this technology, and how is it being used to shape the future of Los Angeles? The wildfires in Los Angeles are not merely devastating events. They also carry symbolism deeply resonant with the region's culture and history. Hollywood, the epicenter of the entertainment industry, has always been fascinated by destruction. From apocalyptic films to narratives of rebirth, fire often represents both an end and a new beginning. But could this symbolism transcend the screen and infiltrate reality? In many circles, fire is seen as an agent of purification. It destroys the old to make way for the new, a metaphor that applies to land and power alike. In a city where public image is everything, wildfires could be seen as a form of symbolic cleansing, a way to erase scandals, silence inconvenient voices, or even create new opportunities for those pulling the strings behind the scenes. Curiously, Hollywood has faced a series of crises in recent years, from allegations of sexual harassment to exposés of obscure practices by prominent figures. Interesting how, amidst so much chaos, new narratives always emerge to divert our attention. It seems Hollywood never misses a good opportunity to rewrite its story. Could it be a coincidence that the wildfires coincide with these periods of upheaval? Perhaps the flames are not just clearing the landscape, but also restructuring the very balance of power. Some public figures emerge even stronger after these tragedies, taking advantage of the renewal narrative to rebuild their images. Studios and corporations also seem to thrive, launching projects that symbolize a new beginning immediately after the fires. But the destruction always benefits the same, those with the resources to adapt quickly. Could the fire be a tool for further consolidating the power of this elite? Reconstruction in Los Angeles often takes on a futuristic tone. Sustainable structures, planned neighborhoods, and cutting-edge technologies replace what was lost. While this might appear to be natural progress, it also represents a paradigm shift. Old residents are displaced, while the city becomes increasingly inaccessible to the middle and lower classes. Fire, therefore, not only destroys but redefines who has the right to remain. There is also the cultural symbolism. Los Angeles, as a city, is constantly reinventing itself. Since its founding, the the region has undergone radical transformations, often driven by tragedies. Could the wildfires be an extension of this cycle? An event that, intentional or not, perpetuates the myth of a city rising from the ashes, like the legendary Phoenix? This metaphor gains strength when analyzing how the media and local leaders shape the narrative after the fires. Terms like resilience and renewal are widely used, creating a sense that destruction was, in some way, inevitable and even necessary. But who truly benefits from this narrative of rebirth? There is also a ritualistic aspect that cannot be ignored. In ancient cultures, fire was used in ceremonies to invoke higher powers or sacrifice for a greater good. Hollywood, with its frequent connections to theories of occult practices, could be repeating these patterns on a symbolic level. For some, could fire not only be a tragedy, but also an opportunity to renew invisible pacts of power? The patterns are undeniable. Fires strike strategic regions, destroy selected properties, and favor significant changes to the physical and social landscape of Los Angeles. Instead of a random disaster, the wildfires take on the appearance of a carefully orchestrated process, where every flame has a purpose. And what about the impact on the collective psyche? Like in the movies, fire inspires fear and awe. It unites communities, but also fragments them. It erases stories, but also creates new ones. In the end, fire shapes both the city and its inhabitants. But who decides what will remain and what will be consumed by the flames? Is Hollywood's symbolism of fire merely a cultural coincidence? Or does it reflect a greater power manipulating not only the land, but also the narratives that sustain it? Since its inception, Hollywood has been the target of rumors about occult practices, esoteric symbolism, and rituals conducted far from the spotlight. The wildfires that frequently devastate the region are, to many, more than just a tragedy. They are events laden with symbolism and intentionality, harking back to ancient traditions and power plays operating in the shadows. But how does fire connect to these rituals, and why is it so recurrent in Los Angeles? In ancient cultures, fire was considered a sacred element, used for purification, transformation, and connection with the divine. Sacrifices were made in bonfires, both as offerings to gods and as a way to renew spiritual pacts. It would not be far-fetched to think that similar practices could have been adapted to modern circumstances, especially in an industry that constantly flirts with the occult and the symbolic. Curiously, some of the areas affected by wildfires in Los Angeles have historical ties to legends and mystical practices. Griffith Park, for instance, often threatened by fires, is associated with stories of curses since its founding. Could the fire be a literal symbol of ancestral energies manifesting, or a way to conceal something more tangible? Some theories suggest that the wildfires could be part of an energetic renewal ritual, intended to cleanse the region and prepare the ground for new cycles of power. In an environment like Hollywood, where image and influence are everything, the symbolic act of destruction and reconstruction may carry profound meanings. What appears to be mere destruction could, in fact, be the strategic reinvention of an elite feeding off the energy of chaos. There are also persistent rumors of secret meetings held in luxurious properties in the hills of Los Angeles, many located in areas affected by the wildfires. These gatherings, often described as involving rituals or ceremonies, are said to be linked to power pacts among industry magnates, politicians, and other influential figures. Could fire be used to cover tracks, eliminate evidence, or even amplify the symbolism of these practices? Reports of unexplained fires in abandoned or discreet properties also raise questions. One widely discussed case involved an old mansion associated with a controversial businessman, which caught fire shortly before its sale was announced. Was this merely a coincidence, or are such locations deliberately destroyed to erase compromising connections? Another intriguing point is the connection between fires and astral alignments. Some conspiracy theory researchers note that major wildfires coincide with significant astronomical events, such as eclipses or supermoons. While this might be dismissed as superstition, it is undeniable that some ancient cultures planned important rituals according to the movement of celestial bodies. Could the modern elite be replicating these patterns in secret? The media rarely mentions these coincidences or explores the symbolic aspects of fire. Instead, wildfires are treated as tragedies disconnected from any larger narrative. But are the symbols truly hidden, or are we simply not looking for them? After all, Hollywood is an industry built on layers of meaning, where what we see is often just a fraction of the truth. Survivors of wildfires frequently report feelings of disorientation and loss, not just material, but also emotional. This psychological impact is a hallmark of transformation rituals, in which destruction is followed by a period of rebuilding and adaptation. What if this cycle were not merely a consequence of fire, but part of its intention? The association between fire and power in Hollywood cannot be ignored. From early studios to modern mansions, the city seems to have a symbiotic relationship with flames. But is this merely part of its history, or a reflection of something deeper operating behind the scenes? The question echoes with every disaster. Is the fire in Los Angeles truly random, or are we witnessing a carefully calculated phenomenon, a power play that uses destruction as a symbolic and strategic language? Los Angeles has always been surrounded by a unique mysticism, fueled by its iconic hills, its connection to art and spirituality, and rumors of unseen forces shaping its essence. But as wildfires continue to devastate the region, some alternative researchers are beginning to question: is fire a purely physical phenomenon, or is it part of something greater, tied to spiritual forces coursing through the land? According to esoteric theories, the planet is covered by a system of energy lines known as ley lines, supposedly natural channels of power connecting sacred sites and influencing the world's balance. Now it gets even stranger. Are we talking about fire, or about a form of energy engineering that turns tragedies into tools of power? Cities like Stonehenge, the pyramids of Egypt, and Machu Picchu are strategically positioned along these lines, and Los Angeles is also believed to sit at one of these intersections. Comparative maps of recent wildfires reveal an intriguing coincidence. Many fire outbreaks occur along these supposed energy lines. The destruction of specific areas seems to follow a pattern that transcends randomness. Could the wildfires be more than just accidents? Perhaps a means of manipulating or releasing energies tied to these points. The ancients believed that fire held powerful symbolic significance, used for purification and transformation. In rituals, it was employed to open spiritual portals or renew a place's energies. Could the wildfires in Los Angeles follow this logic, functioning as a kind of large-scale ritual sacrifice? Hollywood, with its stories of occultism and symbolic practices, also contributes to the aura of mystery. Locations like Griffith Park, frequently threatened by fires, carry legends of curses and esoteric practices tied to their foundation. Are these strategic points intentionally chosen to intensify the connection between the fires and the energy flow coursing through the region? Alternative researchers note that during major astrological events, such as eclipses or planetary alignments, fire outbreaks in Los Angeles seem to increase. These coincidences raise suspicions that hidden forces or powerful groups are using these events to channel invisible energies. Fire may be the necessary catalyst to activate these lines and shape the region's energetic future. Another element that cannot be ignored is the proximity of many fires to sites of historical or cultural significance. Some of these areas include monuments, old properties, or even lands that, in the past, were the stage for native ceremonies. The destruction of these areas is not just physical, but also symbolic, erasing the energetic legacy they hold. Independent research groups suggest that Hollywood's elite and major corporations are interested in exploiting these invisible forces. These theories claim that secret rituals, performed away from public eyes, might be part of a plan to control or redirect Los Angeles' energies. What if the wildfires were more than accidents? Could they be the result of a carefully orchestrated ritual? The behavior of fire in some of these areas also defies conventional explanations. There are reports of specific objects and structures remaining intact while everything around them is consumed. Could these points be natural protection zones along the energy lines or evidence of intentional intervention? Even in modern times, fire's impact is primal. It evokes fear and reverence, forcing people to disconnect from their routines and confront the fragility of their existence. Could fire, then, be an effective tool for transforming not just the physical landscape, but also the collective consciousness of a region? As fringe science seeks answers to the connections between fire outbreaks and energy lines, the question arises: who is manipulating these events and why? Are these natural forces reacting to human interference, or something deliberate, planned behind the scenes? If Los Angeles truly sits atop a crucial energy point, what is being shaped or unleashed by these flames? What seems like a natural tragedy may, in fact, be a calculated move to alter not just the physical space, but also the region's very balance of power. The wildfires in Los Angeles carry layers of meaning far beyond visible destruction. Through real estate interests, media manipulation, technological advances, or occult symbolism, the flames seem to be part of a power game operating in the shadows. For many, destruction equates to tragedy, but it may be the centerpiece of a mechanism that reorganizes territories, narratives, and influences. The truth is out there, hidden in the interstices of a system no one dares to question. But if you're ready to see beyond what you're shown, like, comment, and share this video with those who also need to wake up. Tell me, what mystery should we unravel in the next episode? Together, we'll break the codes they try to keep secret. This is just the beginning of The Hidden Secret.